Meta just dropped below 600 and there is a tremendous amount of curiosity. Initially, I thought there was an over-exaggeration of negative sentiment, but as I started digging further, I realized this is gaining attraction from both sides of the aisle. People that are wanting to invest this for the long haul are interested. Is this the right time to jump in? And people that bought it when there was around 400 or 300 are wondering, is it time to sell this stock? We're going to do our analysis, give you some of my thoughts on what I think, and then you can make your informed decision whether you sell, buy, or perhaps look at another investment. But before we get started, hit that like, subscribe button, and if you can, and if you want to support me any further, please consider subscribing to my Patreon. There, I put up some exclusive content that I don't post anywhere else. With that being said, let's get started. First, we're going to take a look at revenue. If you take a look, 5 years ago, it was making $66 billion to today making over $150 billion. The one thing I like is that after Apple introduced its policy for privacy, its revenue took a huge dump. It went from increasing about 20% a year in growth to decline growth and plateaued revenue. But it had the resiliency, guts to figure out this issue and re-accelerate growth. In March of 2021, it actually reported a growth of 2%. Following a quarter in June, 11%, and after that it just been on an absolute tear, consistently growing above 20%, and its latest quarter it grew almost by 19%. These metrics are very important to understand. Company has management that can re-accelerate pitfalls when they come and figure out these difficult challenges. So this is a plus, and it's the same management. Mark Zuckerberg has been the head of this company throughout its turbulence and throughout its growth. Even if something comes up that can have a decline in the future, I know management is in place that can re-accelerate it and figure out the next path for growth. Next, we look at a number of outstanding shares. It hit a peak of 1.95 billion shares, and then it started doing share buyback to today having 2.6 billion outstanding shares. And if we go at the bottom here, ever since its price has went up, the number of shares that it buys back has decreased to 1.5%. But when the stock was at a good or reasonable value, it was able to do 5 to 6%. I don't think this number decreasing, it's a big deal. To me, this just means the price ran up too fast, too quickly. Lastly, we're going to take a look at its margin of profit, which is 37%. I can't tell you how many companies would kill to have this profit margin. Even reaching 20, it's insane. This thing is reaching 37%. This margin really came into its own around to December of 2021. Before that, it was in the 20s and even had a decline in profitability from June of 2022 to all the way to December. And then start of 2023, it re-accelerated profitability. Now, the next thing we want to take a look at is its projected revenue growth. Now, I am seeing numbers of 18% year-on-year growth. I think that's too much. Can we realistically expect this company to grow at 18% when it starts to hit 250 in revenue, when it starts to hit 300 in revenue? I don't think so. I think there's going to be a period where it slows down or even a period where it plateaus. So I wouldn't say that I'd be comfortable giving this growth rate for the next 5 years until 2030. When we take a look at some other revenue projections, we do see 17, we see 14.96, we do see other numbers. We see 11 being one of the metrics on Simple Wall Street, and we're seeing a lot of the numbers. But the main theme I got from this whole research is that they are expecting this company to have an increase in revenue for the next 5 years in the teens. Now that we have all the research information that we need, let's go to the Excel sheet and see what would be its new projected stock price for 2030. Number one, growth. I decided not to go with 18. I feel like it's going to be too hard for it to consistently grow when it starts reaching that 250, 300 mark. So I went a little conservative and said that it can grow 14% for the next 5 years, which is a compound growth of 92% over the next 5 years. Share buybacks, I think for the next 5 years, it will be able to decrease its outstanding share by 10% because there's going to be a lot more revenue and a lot more profits coming in. Next, for the PE, its current PE is 27, which I think is bonkerly cheap. I think it's going to sell at a 30 PE in the future by year 2030, because right now it's starting to just catch up to those numbers. Margin of profits are going to decrease. This margin of profits way too high. I'm sorry, but it's not going to be able to sustain 38% of margin of profit. It's going to have a lot of tailwinds that it's going to come up, and a lot of places where it's going to have to invest to keep up with technology and growing trends. So I think that number decreases to 30. Once we put all this stuff into the Excel sheet, it gives us a stock price of $1,200 by 2030 based on today's metrics that we are calculating right now. Now, I want to emphasize one thing. Based off of these calculations, it's expected to have revenue of $300 billion by year 2030. Back in July, when I made my initial analysis, when it was selling for $400, I didn't think it could hit that number. I still don't think it can hit that number. I am still going with $250 billion. In my initial projection, I thought it could hit $250 billion and a stock price of $970. I'm still sticking with my initial thesis. I really haven't seen an extreme exponential explosion in revenue that makes me believe that it can do 300 billion. So based off of those metrics, I am sticking with 250 billion. I believe it'll be a $970 stock by 2030. But if you go off of today's analyst projections, it can hit $1,150. Either way you look at this company, it is worth holding and not selling yet. It needs to really get up there in valuation and price before you even consider selling. In my opinion, that's when it reaches about the $700-800 mark that you actually start thinking, okay, should I sell this stock now? Just because it dropped below 600 or that it has been having a massive run up doesn't mean this stock is overvalued. Even according to my projections and even some of the analyst projections, undervalued and fairly valued. Anyways, guys, I want to get your thoughts on this. Do you guys think I'm right? Do you guys think I'm over bullish, under bullish? Do you guys want to put some of your own numbers in it? I mean, this sheet is available on my Patreon if you're interested in subscribing. But what are some of your thoughts? Do you think it can hit 300 billion? Do you think it can't hit 300 billion? Or do you think I'm being overly cautious when it comes to analyzing this stock? Whatever it is, comment below and let me know. And subscribe to Common Investor.